kind of adjust. I almost missed coming on here tonight. I almost did. I started I started like getting everything ready and everything. And I set an alarm on my phone for 7:50 instead of 6:50 to get ready. And then I looked at the clock to see what time it was, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 6:59. Let's run, get it together, get upstairs. So, I need to get my water and get my plans. So, hopefully tonight, I'm really hoping today will be the last live where you can hear the neighbor dogs barking. We talked to the police department, and because I had called animal control like 3 different times. If you're new to this, our neighbors have abandoned their dogs. They only show up to occasionally feed them, and nobody's really done anything. So hopefully, apparently they have talked to animal control. So hopefully they will show up and take dogs. And yeah, because that's not good for them and it's not good for the neighborhood. So anyway, hopefully we don't hear too much barking in the background tonight. If you do, I'm very sorry. Okay. Today, well, I guess it started on Saturday. We started getting some work done. We are still having totally just not winter weather, like the way we usually have in Illinois. And the last couple of years, we've just gotten warmer and warmer. We are way up northwest, like in the northwest corner of Illinois. And it gets very cold here. And we have not had a super bad winter in a number of years now. And last year we barely had snow, and this year we've only had a dusting here and there. Hi, Robin. So it's been very, very unseasonably cold or warm. So this weekend on Saturday, this is the first weekend my husband has not had to work over a weekend, and we're like, let's get it done. So we had some walnut trees harvested a few weeks ago, and our whole walnut grove will eventually not be there anymore because walnut trees and gardening, I don't know if y'all know this, but that's not good. If you're looking to plan an area for a garden and there are walnut trees, don't plant it there. Walnut trees, their roots and what they drop when they drop the nuts and everything, and as they decompose into the ground, it puts these tannins into the ground that are very bad for a number of different vegetables. And I honestly don't know about herbs. I don't know if they are bad for herbs too, but I know that a number of, vegetables that have those soil requirements, some herbs also have those same soil requirements. So I'm not really willing to risk that. So a lot of these walnut trees, I mean, they're super big. And some of them, like we have these really severe, we're like on the edge of tornado alley here too. So we get tornadoes and we get a lot of severe storms, and there'll be big branches that come down and everything. And most of our farm is timbered, and forestry management is an important part of that. Not just for, managing damage to trees and things, but also risk of forest fires and just for the health of your soil. And you want to make sure that things don't end up getting eroded because when trees start to go down and pull up root systems, properties that have any erosion on there just get hugely worsened. So because the history of our farm was a commercial farm that eroded basically to death. Hi, Laura. We want to make sure we're doing everything we can with the trees and with the ground and everything with our soil to protect everything. So we went ahead and harvested 8 walnut trees, which left us with a huge mess because we told the tree company, do not take all of that. We want to keep the tops because when we move out there, we will be heating with wood primarily. So we want to keep all the tops, and there's still some big sections of wood. So we've got a really nice firewood pile going right now. And then we've got all of these tops that are like blocking paths for wildlife, which interferes with the way the deer are going for hunting season. So yeah, it's just the whole thing. So we decided Mark's off work this weekend, and The weather is nice. It was 37 degrees on Saturday. Let's get it done. So we got a bunch of those trees cut up and put to the side, and we're going to get a mulcher and mulch everything. And we are not going to use that in the garden because remember, walnut trees and gardening, they're not friends. We're going to use it in other areas of the farm, just in areas where we don't really want to maintain. So we're just going to go ahead and put that down there, and that'll be a nice thing to have. But while we were doing that, I'm sitting over there looking at the garden, going, I really need to get on this. Like, we've got all this good weather. We're moving the garden just to the whole other side of the property that is the part of it that's cleared. So I said, I got to get some stuff done. What am I going to do? And I've been thinking about this. And do I want to have an earth garden? Do I want to have raised beds? Do I want to do a little bit of both? With my AS, it's like managed right now and it's under control, but I don't know what's going to happen in the future. So I want to create a garden, much like we are creating the herb farm, to where if I end up wheelchair bound, if I end up like truly handicapped 100% of the time, then I can still manage things, that I don't have to stop. Everything should be established and done. So that's part of the building. That's part of building a farm, building a homestead, is creating things with the future in mind and making sure that what you're doing, you don't have to undo or redo years down the road because now you can't manage it. I definitely don't want that to happen. And I don't want to have to depend on people to get things done. Now, I do expect with the workload and the amount of things that we grow, I'm going to have some people, like, there's going to come a time that I'm going to have to probably hire a couple people to help with farm things. But right now we're still in the building and getting everything off the ground kind of phases. And that takes a few years when you're doing things slow and, as you have the cash and things. So now we're just planning. So I'm going to show you. I did not have time to get the whole thing done because we got home at like 4, I think. And I've been like in research mode ever since and getting things done. What I got done today was pretty much, I decided on not really raised beds. They're more like framed beds. So I will be planting directly into the earth. And then I can just kind of add compost, but they're framed out like raised beds. And then if I later want raised beds, all I'm doing is building up from what's already there. It'll be really easy just to kind of take a lawnmower through there and just go around the beds, just to edge around there. It'll be easier for weed suppression. It'll be easier for me for amending things. It'll be easier to manage what's happening per crop. It'll be easier for crop rotation. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Now, this is how I plant. And it might be a little like, ooh, because, paper and pencil is like a thing of the past, but it is not for me. I do not like everything online. I am a super visual, I want to see it and take it with me and draw it out myself kind of person. So what I do is I take some graph paper and I start taping things together. Okay. So here is the garden. I'm gonna have to like lean back here. So here's the garden. Here is what we're going with here. So this space here is it's like a 50 by 60, I think it is. And I am doing, oh shoot, I didn't write it on here. I put it on stories and Instagram. I'm doing, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 4x8 framed beds, 4 4x8s, and 2 4x28s, I think. And that's what it'll look like. This part down here, this is the entrance to the garden. I will have a fence around it because it's out of town. There's animals. So I will put a fence up there. Now, things to keep in mind for where we're putting this. Our animals are here. So we will have all of our poultry anyway. Our chickens, our rabbits, all of our small animals are right here on this side. So it'll be easy for me to like pull out a fence or just to open this out for them and them to be able to go into the garden and help me with the fall cleanup at the end of the year. So that was important for me. That was one factor for me. Another factor was compost. I don't want to be, like how we handle compost is it comes out of the animals and it goes straight into compost. We've got different kinds of compost. We've got the compost from the animals, and we've got compost that comes from home, because we are not here, we're not there full time. We're, it's still in the backyard homestead here. So anything food wise, kitchen scrap wise, like anything like that that otherwise can be added to compost goes in a different pile. And because they also kind of break down at different speeds, and I am not an expert on compost. It's something that I am striving to be this year, because compost is such an important part of what we do. And it is going to be even more so going forward. So the compost, so chickens are here and stuff, we will muck out there and be able to bring it right into our compost system. And then it goes from there straight into the garden. So everything is close together. We're not going all the way over here and then all the way over there. You got to keep everything close together. The other thing that I wanted to consider was where it was in relation to the house. Our house is going to be like, here. So we're sitting on the porch, and we're looking out over animals, our garden. This is the homestead garden. This is not the herb farm. This is the homestead garden. So like looking out, say I'm sitting on the porch, it'll be chickens, garden, farm is over here, and the education center is like back behind there. So if you're sitting on the porch in the education center, which is the porch that I'm sitting on in the cabin when I do those videos, and I'm sitting on the cabin porch, that's the education center. So you sit on that porch, you look out on the herb garden, you sit on the home at the house. On that porch, you're looking out over the homestead area. So that's what we're doing there. And I want to be able to keep things close, because just going, like if you run outside, you need something, it's easier if it's closer, So I want to keep everything close. So that'll be that. I am so excited about this. You have to have a chair in your garden. It is just necessary. If your garden is your sanctuary, put a chair in there, a table and chairs. I fully anticipate having breakfast and morning tea and sitting out here and doing homeschool stuff and all the things out here in this garden. I am fully anticipating that. I am so excited for it. So there's the first step. Hubby put in 3-foot high raised beds for me. They are a game changer. That is excellent. I do want to have, and this is the part I don't have drawn out yet, is what the farm version of this, the herb farm. And I'll talk about it here today, but I don't have a visual for you guys to see it. So I can, like, if you're visual, this might be kind of hard to follow, but I am going to have, it's going to be like the greenhouse is the center. And then I'm going to have 3-foot high raised beds around the greenhouse. And then the next layer out is going to be more of these, like these kinds of things where it's just like framed beds. And then it's going to be the fence part all the way around is going to be like the earth garden all the way around there. So it's just going to kind of be like tiered like that. And it's in my head, and it's so beautiful in my head, and I cannot wait for it. So yeah, it's super exciting. Super exciting. We have been in this backyard homestead for 15 years now. And we haven't been growing the entire time. Like, we've been living here for 15 years. My husband actually bought this house before we met. So he's been here for 18 years. So, and we've been here together for 15. And we bought our land almost 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years in May. And when we first bought it, it was in the CRP, so we couldn't do anything except hunt it. Then it came out, and then we could slowly start doing things. So we started like clearing by hand. It was just like him and a chainsaw, and the other 5 of us just grabbing trees, making piles, burning them, and repeat. And then eventually we got someone that was like forestry. He was a forestry management guy, and he was like, he understood our passion with soil and how important it was to not rip things out of the ground, which you find with forestry guys, not just tree clearers, but forestry guys. And he came with a drum mulcher, and he mulched everything down. I actually have a YouTube video on it. It is so cool to watch. But he drum mulched like 3 acres for us, and did also our food plot area in the back. And that just was like, Oh my gosh, it was so much nicer. I would love to have him come out and do the rest of the section that we need to have done, but I believe we can't get a hold of him. And we had two other guys come out and give us estimates. They were astronomical. It was like they wanted like 7 grand to do like a fraction, like an eighth of what this guy did. And we paid him not even $2,000, I think. So I'm like, I can't swallow a $7,000 bill when we still have to put in a well and septic and all that stuff. I have 4x4 raised beds, and this year we are adding 4 more. That's awesome. That's the way to do it. You do a little bit at a time. The only reason I'm doing everything this year is because we literally we have a crap ton of wood sitting around. I think it was over a year ago. Maybe it might have been 2 years ago now. I don't know. We had been invited to this like estate where this man had a barn full of wood, and it was old wood. It was like hardwoods, true 2x4s, 4x4s, 3x3s, all sorts of random things, and they were long boards and things. And they said, you can just come and get whatever you want. So we went and we filled up my husband's truck. He's got an old 3/4 ton Dodge Ram, and this is a very big, heavy truck with like a long 8-foot bed and everything. And we just filled this sucker all the way to the top. And it was a lot of wood. And we just went and we put it up. So we like put it up on horses and we wrapped the stuff and covered it really good. Well, then at the beginning of this year, I think it was, I may be getting my times off, but like, I think it was around the beginning of this year or of 23. That we realized that mice had gotten in there and they had peed and pooped all over the wood. And he said, well, it's junk now. I said, no, it's not. Those are raised beds. Like, we can totally make raised beds out of that. Absolutely. So he was just going to burn it all. And I said, no, sir, we're going to make some raised beds. Please let me have that wood. He's like, do what you want. So we moved it all. Saturday we took the whole pile. It took all 6 of us to get it, moved it over. And then I laid out some beds. And then today I laid plastic to kill the grass. We'll talk about those steps in a second. And I started framing things out and drawing them. It's exciting. Your plan is fantastic, and I agree. Chairs in the garden are a must. You have to have chairs in the garden. It's just so relaxing. Well, it's and it serves a couple purposes. Like, yes, it's relaxing to go in there and just sit. And it's important to kind of go in there and reflect on what you're doing. I really feel closest to God when I am in nature and when I'm in my garden. And that's an important place for me to be able to go. I can sit and read my Bible. I can sit and just talk to him. I can sit and just be there and just feel connected. And it's just a wonderful, peaceful place for me. So very important. Also, rest. Because when you're sitting there and you're weeding and you need a break, do you really want to go drag out a garden chair or something? No, you want to have like a nice comfortable chair sitting there ready for you. Yes, that's what I want to do. I eventually, where I have the table and chairs, this is this year's. Like, I already have the table and chair and everything too. Like, I have our neighbor across the street died this year. No, not this year. Last year in 23. I'm going to do this for like probably a solid 3 months. She died last spring, and she was older. She was ready. It was not a sad thing. It was a blessing for her. And she had this wrought iron table and chair set that we would always go back. And when we would get severe storms, we'd go flip it for her so that it didn't go flying and everything, and put stuff away for her. And when they had the estate sale, I saw that there and I said, I have to get that. So, and we'd go out there and, me and her would sit and she'd watch my daughter go riding her bike up and down her driveway and stuff. So I had to get that. So that's going to go right there. I really want to build, something in the ground, like a little gazebo thing. I don't know if you'd really call it a gazebo, but something like that. I would like some kind of like shaded shelter there, but it can't be so big that it's going to be blocking out the sun, because this is the south. This is south facing here. So it can't be so big that it's going to do that, but something that maybe I could put, a curtain on or something. It would just be so nice. Wouldn't that be nice? Oh, I think that would be so much fun. That's where I feel most connected to. Yeah. It's nature. It's like the heart of creation to me. I don't know. It's wonderful. So, okay. Hang on. I was talking about the backyard homestead. Okay. So here, the space that we have here, we started with a little 10 by 10 garden bed. I had told my husband, I probably should redo something on like why we homestead and everything. No, because my channel's different now. I don't know. We'd have to think about it. But the reason we started homesteading was basically because the first like economic drop after we were adults and dealing with things on our own, the housing market crash in I think it was '08. That's when things got really hairy for us. And well, it wasn't in '08. We hadn't even met in '08 yet. It was 2010 into 2011 when things started being affected out here. When things start going haywire out in the cities and everything, it takes a little while for some areas in the country, I think, to feel it. And our area is very much like that because our cost of living is crazy, crazy low. People think Illinois is so bad, it's so horrible, it's so expensive. It is very easy to find a house. Well, probably not right now, but up until this last crazy inflation thing, it was very easy to find a house for $60,000 out here. And I'm not talking a tiny house either. I'm talking like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, corner lot house, 60 grand. Easy on a decent lot. So that was not hard to do. It was easy to find 10-acre properties for $125,000. It was really easy to do with like outbuildings and a house and yeah, old farmhouse. Really easy to do. So it took a while for kind of the crap to hit the fan out here. So when that happened, finally, and it started affecting us, my husband had basically a commission only job, and that really tanked everything. So his income got cut in half, and then it got cut in half again. So it was kind of like, all right, if we don't grow it, we ain't eating. So we started growing, and he said, start with a 10 by 10, see what you can do. And I grew a lot of food, and I had a friend teach me how to can because I did not grow up with this. And that's all she wrote. The next year I said, till up the entire side. I want the whole thing done. So he said, let's do another 10 by 10 spot. And we negotiated, and I said, okay, give me this. And I don't remember how big it was, but he said, okay, fine. And then the next year it was just rectangle it out, whole thing. Let's go. Let's just do it. And he saw how much food I could put up, and he's just like, well, all right, okay, this is a thing. So it ended up being between what we were growing in ground and the little raised beds. And I took out all of our landscaping and made it raised beds, like up against things, up against the house and stuff. Recycled our old playground set for the kids when it had about had it, and the kids would be on it and I'd see the thing moving. I'm like, okay, that needs to come down. Let's turn it into raised beds. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we made hugelkultur beds against our garage. So total, it was over 400 square feet of growing space, which is what we've had just in our house in town on our corner lot here. So it's so many things vertical also. So it's been really amazing how much we could actually grow. The only thing that I could never grow enough of was tomatoes, because there's only so much you can do with vertical space in tomatoes. And you grow indeterminates, just keep growing and growing. But if you have a slower or a shorter growing season, they can only grow so high, So I'd start them ahead of time and they'd get really big, and I'd plant them down and they'd take off and they'd do great. And I had buckets and buckets of tomatoes, but I could never grow enough. So then when people started realizing in our neighborhood what we were doing, then I started having them they would just drop them off. They'd be like, hey, I have too many tomatoes. Do you want them? I said, yes, I do. So I would end up taking them on from all these different neighbors. And then we started growing, or we started being able to put up a year's worth of tomato products, and a year's worth of green beans, and a year's worth of pickles and things. It just kept going and going. So being able to do this out there now. A couple years ago, I decided 2 years ago, I started putting the tomatoes out there so that I can open up more herb space here and kind of experiment with herbs at home before I put them out there. And then I started, like, the oregano like took over. So now our beautiful garden bed that used to be like all of these different vegetables that we could grow is now like mostly tomatoes. But most of our vegetables have been out there the last 2 years. So it's just been kind of back and forth. The things that I learned here, I've definitely helped me out there. And if I hadn't learned all of the things that I learned here the hard way and going kind of slow and steady, and I love this saying, turn your waiting room into your classroom. It's so, so true with herbs and with gardening in general, with vegetables, with all of the things. Just while you're waiting to do what you really want to do what you can where you're at. And if we hadn't done that, then I'd be starting at square one. We sure wouldn't have a farm now, and we sure wouldn't be able to grow everything that we do. Are you planning on selling the InTown house, or wait, hang on. Are you planning on selling the InTown house once you get your farmhouse built? No, we are moving into a camper. Yep. So we're moving into a camper in this spring. And it's the plan. We'll see what God has for us, but that's the plan. We've had conversations, so hopefully we're still on the same page. But I really, really am hoping that we are out there before I'm transplanting everything. Is that going to happen? Who knows? Who knows? We are planning on buying the camper in possibly the end of February, March. So it's coming up. And once we buy the camper, then we are going to, well, we have to put the pad down first, and then it's just going to be a gravel pad because the camper is not a permanent thing. And then we'll put the camper there. And then once the camper is there, then we will put the house on the market. The initial plan was to put the house on the market, sell the house. Then when the house is sold, then we would, or no, what were we going to do? I can't even remember the initial plan. That was so long ago, and it's changed so many times. I think we were going to start things there, and then we couldn't go past a certain point. This is where it was. And then until we got the house sold, and then we needed that money to be able to finish things. That's what we were going to do. Now, with inflation being what it is, there's no way we can do anything until we sell this house. We need the money from this house to be able to do what we need to do out there. And we're still going to have to do it really cheap. We don't know what we're going to do yet. We don't know what we want to build. I mean, we know what we want to build. We would love to build a log cabin. And I have a whole floor plan, and it is designed, and it'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful. But we'll see what we can do with what we have when that time comes. We want to live small in the camper for a while. In the cabin, being the education center, is also going to double as some extra like common area. So we have this gigantic couch in our living room, and we're like, this can't go in a camper. We're going to put it into the cabin, and that way we'll have kind of some extra space to spread out and everything. So we'll be able to I guess stay sane during this whole living in a camper thing. And then we'll see how we like that after a while, and then we'll decide what we're going to build. But we're moving out there before we build a house. Turning your waiting room is one of my favorite sayings too. I'm currently eating sausage and potatoes with my first successful batch of sauerkraut. That is awesome. And sausage and potatoes with sauerkraut sounds really good. We had a very slow start this morning, and we didn't eat breakfast until almost 11. And we didn't get out to the farm until after noon. And then we didn't eat lunch until about, I don't know, we kind of grazed on stuff that I had brought out there, and nobody ate a meal until 4:30. I'm like, well, that's pretty much dinner right there. So if you guys are hungry, just feed yourselves. So I made muffins this morning for breakfast, but that was it. That's all the cooking I did. And I put something together for my husband for dinner, but that was all. That was all that we did. And sausage, I had leftover venison and hominy, and that was it for dinner. So sausage, potatoes, and sauerkraut sounds really good. Okay, so planning. When you're planning, when you're wanting to plan a garden, if it's whether it's your first garden or if it's like, if you're not happy with something, and you want to make a change, you have to think about what you want out of it. So I had mentioned with this plan that I am wanting to be able for it to be close to my house. I'm wanting it to be close to my animals so that we can let the chickens come in and do some tilling, end of year tilling and foraging for me, help with pest control. I want the compost to be close by. So these are things that are important. When you're designing, when you're planning a new growing space, you have to think and be realistic about your expectations and what your needs are. If you have a hard time with mobility, don't do an earth garden. You do not want to do that. It's very labor intensive to have to weed and to have to get down on the ground. So you might want to look into raised beds or other kinds of vertical gardens. You can do all towers. You can do the raised beds, like I said. You can do framed out beds like what I'm going to do, but that's still getting down on the ground and you're still going to have a little bit of weed pressure until your plants get established. So how I like to prepare a ground, because we are very adamantly anti-till. It's like we are all no-till, and whenever I have friends that are tilling, I'm like, let me tell you about what that's doing to your ground. Now, I am also you just need to grow your own food, get familiar with it. But the reason why I'm so passionate about like pushing this no-till thing is because when you till, many things happen, but two major things happen. One, you are creating erosion. You are creating like all of the carbon that is in the ground, you are releasing that into atmospheric carbon dioxide. Everything is released. And carbon is what you need for life. It is literally killing your ground. It is taking your soil and turning it into dirt. And dirt cannot sustain life. You have to have soil. There are so many microorganisms in your soil. Have you guys seen the ad for it's all the regenerative agriculture documentary that they just did? And it's all over Instagram right now. And it's a click here to watch this. And we watched it on Saturday and it is so good. It is so good. And it's not the first one of these that I've seen. There's a couple Netflix stories about similar kind of practices, but this one is good. And it's talking about the kids actually sit and watch it with us, which I love. I love that. But they're raised in this, so it's a little closer to their hearts. 5-gallon buckets, 12-inch pots, and 12-inch pots can grow a lot. They absolutely can. I have a friend who she's got a house like in town, right in a lake community and everything. So she has 5-gallon buckets that she grew, and a very large family, and she grew a ton of food in those buckets. A ton. It's very surprising how much that she grew in there. And you can grow so much in 5-gallon buckets and 12-inch pots. Absolutely. But they were talking about in this documentary that there is roughly 40 to 60 years of farmable ground left in the world. So we're sitting there and I'm like, our children could see the end of farming. Our children, this current generation could see the end of farming. And I said that out loud to my husband, and my kids are like there's not going to be any food. I said, well, you see all of this lab grown stuff, and this could lead us down a whole other conversation. But you see all this lab grown stuff and how everything is artificial, and like there's all of these pop-up farms here and there, like growing on concrete and everything. Like that's what you're looking at. It has to be done differently. It's not going to be done the way you're used to here. That's why it's so important for you to learn how to grow your own food. You're like, oh yeah. And my 18-year-old, we were sitting out, he was helping me lay the plastic today. And he's like, I'm so glad I know how to do this. I said, but you don't. You know the steps, But what do you do if you start your seeds and you get mold or whiteflies? He's like, I don't know. I said, what do you do if your entire crop fails? He's like, I have no idea. I guess I have a lot to learn. Can you teach me that this year? Yes, I can. It's pretty cool when your teenager is like seeing the importance of it, because there's a difference. And I told him there's a difference between being raised with it and this just being the voice in your head because it's what you were raised with, and seeing it and knowing it as an adult. It's a big difference. I keep telling my dad, who's your landlord, that no-till is where I'm going with my garden. He thinks I'm crazy. Okay, yeah, yes. And that's the generation though, because they know till. You can't plant anything unless you break up your ground. You're just going to have more weeds, or you're just going to have more problems, and you're going to have more pests. And it's not true. And they don't see it until they see it, you know? They kind of like the proof is in the pudding kind of a thing. Unless you take the time to sit and explain to him biodiversity and soil diversity and all the microorganisms and all of that. and if he's really not receptive to it, he's not going to hear it. You just have to do it. And then when they see it, they're like, whoa. And that's the way it is here, because I live in this tiny little agricultural based town, which is all commercial farms. There is not one organic farm anywhere even remotely close to me. And they're all retired farmers or agricultural something. And they're like, oh, why are you putting all those wood chips down? That's going to kill your soil. And then they see that I grow more than they do. I grow longer and earlier than they do, and that I don't have the pest pressure. And when they're all getting blight, I don't have issues with it because I know how to handle it. And then they start coming over and they start asking me more and more questions. They all still till. They all still do it the way they do it because they're 80. It's what they know, and they're not going to change what they know. But as this new generation, it's our generation starts to become the older, wiser generation. And as our next generation is raised up into it, we can teach them better. I live in the middle of the national forest and still grow in buckets. Just to have more space to grow. It can be moved in and out of the greenhouse. Yep. And that's a really nice thing about it. It's being able to move some plants in and out of the greenhouse. I can't wait to have a greenhouse. I've had little cheap greenhouses here and there. I've never had like a permanent wood-built, stick-built greenhouse before. We've just kind of always done makeshift things. And this year, well, we bought it right after Christmas. We bought it. And it comes on January 6th. I bought the Costco greenhouse. That's what I did. Because I don't need a whole bunch of greenhouse because we're going to have 2 high tunnels eventually. I just need starting space. So I'm so excited to have a greenhouse. Very exciting. So that's going to be the greenhouse that's in the center of the herb garden. And then we're going to plan out from there. I use a pitchfork to move the ground I plant in, or garden auger. Less is more. Absolutely. You know what else I got for the first time this year? Is a broad fork. That's something that I have been wanting for like the better part of 5 years. And this year, I went ahead and I bought it because I need it for next year. I have to have it. I have a 50-foot row of St. John's wort that needs to be planted in the spring. And I can't do that without a broad fork because there's been our landscape stuff down on the ground. And I need to be able to loosen that and get that going, and to be able to move in the sand and perlite that I need to go into the ground to be able to grow St. John's wort. So it's going to be necessary, but I'm certainly not going to till that. So, okay, I keep kind of getting rabbit trailed here. So when I am starting a new bed, so the area that I'm starting this new garden, we framed them out, and I put down the garden fabric. So this stuff, I think the brand is Sunbright or Sunlight or something like that. You can find it on Amazon. Huge rolls of it. It's like the black landscape plastic with the yellow lines on it. That's what I use. That stuff is fabulous. So I get that. Now, stuff will still grow through it. If you leave it down for a long time, stuff will still grow through it. But it's super, super easy to pull those weeds up through it. So basically what happens is, I think the seeds will fall on top of it, and it'll kind of get just enough through the tiny little holes in it that it'll root, but you can just pull it right out and it's totally fine. Like I had one spot, it was at the end of where the plastic was today, and I had to pull out tons and tons of weeds through it. And they just like butter. And then like they were like tall prairie grasses that had seeded over there. So they just touch dirt and they start taking off, but it was still real young, so that the roots weren't super down deep, so I could just pull the whole thing out. And the roots were still like this because it like kind of curls underneath. But anyway, that stuff is really, really good. So I'll put that down and I'll leave that there until spring. And then in spring, I will pull it back and I will put compost on top of it and I will broad fork it in. And then we're good. The grass is dead. The what other things do we have in there? We have poison hemlock in there. We have different grasses. We have different wild herbs. We've got a lot of red clover, and it was very, very hard because that was our red clover crop. Because we did sell, and locally we do sell red clover, not anymore. Because we had to basically turn that field into this so that we could still have our homestead, because homesteading is first and foremost, most important thing. We got to take care of ourselves. So that is all going to get smothered by that plastic, and hopefully the wild parsnip that's there will get smothered out. I'm not 100% sure if it will. I may still have to fight it. What else do we have over there? Bull thistle. But now that I know that bull thistle is actually highly medicinal, especially for people with rheumatism issues, I'm going to be very excited about pulling all of that up if I see any bull thistle. I don't in that area have any Canadian thistle or anything like that, so pray to God that I do not end up having a Canadian thistle issue when I broad fork. The other thing with tilling, if you till, you end up turning over the soil. So any kind of weed issues that you had, all that stuff that was underground, you're turning it over. Now you have new weeds. You have new noxious weeds. And you will find things like thistle. Every single time we turn the soil too much, like we double dug our rows because we didn't have another option last year. Last year. And now I have Canadian thistle. Canadian thistle is awful. Hi, Georgette. It is so bad. I hate Canadian thistle. It is awful. Bull thistle's worse, but now I know it's medicinal, so I can forgive it. But I hate dealing with thistle. Milk thistle, the only reason I'm like okay with milk thistle is because right when we're going to harvest from that is when it's going to be all over the place. So we watch it closer and it's more controlled. And anywhere that it's going to fly, I don't think it's going to be as big a problem because of where it goes, where it's planted, I mean. So, and currently, like this year, we're not doing milk thistle. So we'll see if anything pops up. Thankfully, he lets me do whatever I want. He knows it will be better than it was. Yep. The renter he had in the house previously just killed the property. We've been rehabbing it for almost 2 years now. We've been rehabbing this house for 15. The last guy that owned this house turned it, well, 2 guys ago. He was in this house for years and years and years and years, raised his daughter here. But he was king of cover it up, and the problem was solved. And we had, about 5 years ago, we had, in the middle of February, we had a whole bunch of rain. It just rained. It was like 5 inches in a morning. And it started raining in the center of our kitchen, which was a flat roof above it. Thank the Lord, insurance covered it. But they pulled off 5,000 pounds off of this roof because they found 7 different roofs and 2 of them weren't even roofing material. So they're like, who owned this before? Who did this? And we said his name and they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, we know him. Everybody knows him. Yeah. Stirrup hoe helps a lot to disrupt growth for us. Yeah, I have one of those too. Yeah. I don't really love using the stirrup hoe. It's not my favorite just because I think probably how short I am and the angle that you have to use it, it irritates my back. So it's not my favorite. Not my favorite tool at all. Oh my, yeah, yeah. And the whole house has been like that. It has been so bad. There's been so much, there's wallpaper on the ceilings. It's just white wallpaper, but there's wallpaper on the ceilings. And we just decided, like, let's just patch that and paint it, because I'm not going to fight with wallpaper off a ceiling. And it's fine. It looks fine. But, you know, you can see the lines. So, but it was very common in old farmhouses, at least around here anyway. And then they had textured wallpaper on virtually every common area of this house. And it took years for me to pull it all off. And then we found out that I probably shouldn't have pulled it off in our downstairs bathroom, which is our main bathroom that gets the most traffic. Because they had, when they built that, it was an addition. It was not the original house. This house was built in 1895. That house, or that room, was built with press board. And if you know anything about construction, press board holds a lot of water. You don't create a bathroom with press board. So all of that wallpaper, it was so many layers of wallpaper, and it was different textures and different colors. All of that was probably preventing problems, because when I pulled it all off, there was no mold in there. And now that everything is off, then we started seeing like mold accumulation in areas. I'm like, oh, fix the problem. But it was such a hassle. And when we pulled off the countertop, we found 2 other types of countertop, and newspapers from the 70s, and I don't remember what else. Laminate flooring on the countertops. It's interesting. Renovating old houses is interesting. It's interesting. It's fun. And you know what? After all the years of dealing with this house, I would still rather have an old farmhouse than a brand new construction any day. They're way more efficient. We have radiators for heat and window units for air conditioning, and we love it because we don't have to deal with duct work, which is horrible to asthmatics. Yeah. Yep. Press board in a bathroom. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it was a good time. It's still in there. We treated it. We painted it with kills, and then there's stuff over it. And yeah, there's no issues. There's no issues now, but we had to like figure out how we were going to deal with it, because at that time we could not afford to pull everything out and put cement board in there. Yeah, so it was kind of a hassle. Have you found a camper? So there's 2 models that I'm looking at. My husband's only seen the one. He's a very visual guy. Like, he has to physically be in it. He wants to see the camper, and I can't find one of the model that I really love. I can't find one locally for us to go see. Like, I found one in Missouri, but that's like a 6-hour drive. So like, we're not going to Missouri, especially since we're not ready to buy it right now. We'd like to buy it. Honestly, I would love to buy it from our local dealer, because even though I know it's going to be a lot more money, but the reason is because they have somebody that can come out and service it if there's an issue. And they can deliver it, because we 100% for sure are getting a 5th wheel. To go full-time living in a camper with a family of 6, that I just don't see another way without being really, really cramped. And see, if we had real small children, I think it would be doable. Like, I have another friend who's really wanting to go full-time camping, or RVing and travel and all of that, and start homeschooling. And like, they're talking 0 to 100 going all in, but their kids are super small. Like, her oldest is my youngest. So, and she's got so that's 9 and 2, not even 1. So they have really young kids. So being able to have like a 4-bed bunkhouse is totally doable for her. For us, I have an 18-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old. I can't do that. And my 12-year-old has high functioning autism. 2 of my kids have ADHD, and my 12-year-old also has sensory processing disorder. So like when there's, and two of my kids that are spectrum kids, like they trigger each other. When they're both struggling, they will trigger each other. So what calms one will stimulate another one, will set off another one. So we have to have separation when it's necessary. So in both of these campers, there's bedrooms. There are 2 bedrooms. So we can close doors. And you can have do whatever, your sensory stimulation, your sensory, I don't know, calm down stuff, whatever you need to do. And they can have their space. But also we are together like all the time. So we need to have a good common area. That's why we are moving the couch into the cabin so that we can like set up a whole commons area and be able to still be comfortable and lounge and do all of that. In the camper, the one that I really love has 3 couches in it. Plus it's like kitchen area. We don't have a dining room area. We will rip out the table to put more couch area. We don't have a dining room now. We just kind of live without it, and it's totally fine. TV trays or the floor is kind of where we eat. Older people can eat on the couch, and we're fine with that. That's totally fine. I miss having a dining room table, but the space that we get from not having it is way more beneficial for us. So that camper is like my top choice. And it has a loft in the second bedroom. It's got like the second bedroom, and then above the second bedroom is a loft. So it'd be like 2 kids up there, 2 kids in the bedroom. When my oldest is away at college, then, which is like most of the time, then they can rotate who has their own bedroom. And we're in all sorts of different talks and trying to figure things out. The one camper that my husband really loves, it's really nice. And if we decided that that was the only one we could get because we couldn't find the other one, we'd be fine. We would be so fine with it. It would still be an amazing thing. It's got 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and an amazing kitchen, the common space. It's got a huge loft that 4 adults could sleep in. So there's benefits and drawbacks to both. The one that I really love only has 1 bathroom, but we've got an outhouse on the farm, so it doesn't really bother me. Renovating, we would find old newspaper between the flooring. Awesome if it could be read. Yeah. So this newspaper from the 70s, my husband was so irritated on that day. Number 1, it was like 100 degrees outside, and he doesn't do heat well. Number 2, he didn't want to be doing the project to begin with. So he was not super thrilled to begin with. And number 3, I was like in doing damage control, because when he gets irritated, I'm like just trying to help as much as I possibly can to like make it easier and go faster. Or else I would have been like, oh my gosh, look at this. But I was just like, just get it out. Just get it out. Just go. Let's just make this go fast. Okay. So yeah, I would really like to next weekend go look at campers again. We'll see what we have time for. I don't know. We're moving my oldest. He is on break still, so he goes back on the 9th. And then that weekend we'll see. I don't know if he's going to have to work or not. If he's going to have to work. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I wanted to find a camping world and go look at campers there and like get into some different models and look at them. Because the one here is so expensive. It's so expensive here. And I think Camping World's a little bit cheaper. Like the types of campers that we're looking at, this is the problem. The type of campers that we're looking at are like $100,000. That is not our budget. Like the max of our budget is half of that. And that's even putting it. So the one that my husband fell in love with, that initially I did too, was on consignment. And what happened was the guy had bought it with his wife, and then she died, and they were going to travel around and everything, but now he wants no part of it. He's like, just get rid of it. So he left it on consignment for like $60,000, and the dealer's like, you can get it for $50,000. which we initially we were like, oh my gosh, yeah, but I don't like take advantage of the guy and everything. They're like, no, really, he wanted to sell it for 45 to the other dealer down the road. But we said, no, hang on to it and, just leave it here. We'll take care of it for you. And it's still sitting there. It's still, it's still sitting there. We saw it early December, I think it was. It's still sitting there. Nobody's taking it. I think it might be waiting for us. I don't know. Hi, Jacqueline. I went to Home Depot today and they had garden seeds. Christmas stuff was being moved out. I am now searching for garden tips and found you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too. I've been talking about this. Have you gardened before? Like, are you starting from scratch, or are you just starting seeds for the first time? Like, what's new for you this year? I'll show you because you're just coming in. This is my garden layout this year. Because I'm starting a brand new garden. These are not all raised beds. This is all recycled lumber that I'm doing. And this is just pretty much framed out. I am planting directly into the ground, but it's like framed out to like manage weeds and just what's happening in each bed a little bit easier. So yay for seeds though. I need to place a seed order. I need to go through all of my seeds and figure out exactly what I want. I garden, but this year I want to go big. Yes. Yay. We love that. Love that. Last year I had a goal of canning 1,000 things. Canning 1,000 jars. I didn't even hit a quarter of that because I basically didn't can. I think I can count on one hand the amount of times that I canned, but I got so many. I probably did 1,000 jars of herbs. I didn't count them. I did not count them. I know we did over 80 herbs and multiple jars of each one, like multiple jars of each one, plus Mylar. Some Mylar in 5-gallon buckets. Like, there's a lot of herbs. A lot. Wow, 1,000 jars. So our goals, we have a larger family. So we have 4 kids and 2 are teenagers. One is almost a teenager. And they eat, and 3 boys. So they eat a lot. So we started canning out of necessity. I talked about that earlier in the live. If you want to hear that story, you can go back, check out the replay. But canning was, here's the train. We live right next to train tracks. Canning for us became really necessary because of the economy. Like in, what year was that? What did I say? 2010, 2011 is when we were like really started. So about 10 years that we've been doing this for. And a friend of mine taught me to can, and that's all she wrote. I've been doing it every year. I tried to can, but we eat it too fast. So yeah, if you do small batch canning, that's a problem. And it's very frustrating to do it small batch. I feel like it's different for everybody, but for me, I feel like it's very frustrating to do small batch canning. So what I do, say for tomatoes, most commonly canned thing, I think, that and like jellies and jams, save your tomatoes. Just put them all in the freezer. When I get my tomatoes, now some people will core them and peel them and do all of that, and then they'll put them in the freezer and then save them for later. I don't do any of that. I pop off the green top. Occasionally, if there's a wonky looking core, or like a really woody looking one, I will core that out. But your standard tomato, I will wash them and stick them in a freezer bag and stick them in the freezer. And when I have 20 gallons of tomatoes, then I will pull them out and I will take out my roaster and I'll put them all in there, and you just let them cook for an hour, and then you start to immersion blend them, and it will totally pulverize all of those peels, everything. If you are sensitive to an occasional peel or and it's like a little piece of a peel. It's little. Like, I don't even notice them. My husband doesn't notice them. Most of my kids don't notice them. My one that's a little more sensitive to sensory stuff, he notices it. But that's it. But you could just run it through. They make this really awesome thing that you could just kind of run it through, and it's manual, and you just kind of spin it, and it'll take all of your peels and your seeds out, and then you're left with this perfect tomato puree, and you can make pasta sauces out of that, and soups and whatnot. The bulk of what we make, though, is salsa. We don't do tons of pasta sauce because we don't really eat pasta. I'm gluten-free. One of my kids is gluten-free. We just don't. And my husband, he likes tomato products, but they don't like him, so I don't do tons of pasta sauce. Most of what we do with tomatoes is salsa, and then I can use the salsa in multiple things. And even I do some pasta sauce, but we don't care because we're not eating it straight as a pasta sauce. We don't care if it's got some seeds and a little bit of texture to it. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth for us. So that's that. And then the same thing with green beans. Now with green beans, I prefer to can those immediately after picking them because of the nutrition of them. Certain foods, now all vegetables, once you pick them, immediately the nutritional value starts depleting. So you want to really get them canned and preserved as fast as possible. But if all you can do is freeze them for later, then freeze them. By all means, freeze them for later and then take them out. You can freeze green beans, same thing. Get a bunch of them, stick them in the freezer. I will, string them, snap them, and I'll put them in the freezer. And then when I have lots and lots and I'm ready to do like a ton of pressure canning, then I'll pull them out and we'll just kind of rinse them in some water, and we'll put them in, put salt in. I put salt in my green beans. Fill them up with water and can them from there, and it's super easy. I think pressure canning is way easier and faster than water bath canning. It's just more intimidating. Oh, and you know what? I got a steam canner last year, and that was like a game changer. That was amazing. I hate water bath canning because it makes such a mess, but I absolutely love steam canning. It's fabulous. What else do we make that we freeze? Oh, peppers. Any kind of bell peppers that we get, anything that's not super spicy, that gets diced and frozen right away. And then I got, jalapenos. I dice those and stick them in a bag, and then later on I make cowboy candy out of them because that's about the only way that we use jalapeno peppers. I want a steam canner so badly. You should get one. You should get one because they're amazing. They're not horribly expensive when you're talking about steam canners versus other kinds of canners like pressure canners, and I get the cheap versions of everything. I don't have anything super expensive. I do have an All-American, but the only reason I have that is because a friend of mine was selling everything so that they could go RV full time, and she sold it to me for like $15, and I'm like, I cannot turn that down. So yes, I have one. Run frozen tomatoes under hot water from the tap, and the skins will just peel off easily. Yep. If you want to skin them. Yeah, that's a really good tip. You do not need to do all of that prep work. It is so time consuming and so unnecessary. And if you have a bunch of kids or if you are super busy, it's totally not a necessary step. It is one that you can totally skip. And there's a lot of nutrition in the skins too. So there's a friend of mine, Tanchi from Freedom Homestead. She had years ago, she had done a YouTube video about turning her tomato skins into it was like what was the flavor of it? She basically turned it into a powder so she could put it on their popcorn. It was what'd she do? It was like she dehydrated the skins and then she mixed it with salt. Was it salt? It had to have been salt. I want to say she mixed it with something else. I can't remember. I can't remember what it was. Look up Freedom Homestead tomato skins. You'll find it. It should pop right up. That's really tasty. I've heard of that. Yeah. There's a lot of things you can do with stuff like that. What else do we do in bulk? Any kind of berries. And berries is the one thing that's hard to get to the freezer in my house. Everybody eats them. And I figure if everybody's eating them fresh, great. If I want to can something, if I want to can fruit, I usually end up purchasing it in bulk. And then I'll can it. Like we got 20 some odd pounds of blueberries, and I made blueberry syrup. And then we can add that to all sorts of different things. So I really like the idea of making meals in jars, like, and I strive to do that one day. And it would be amazing. Like, I watch 1870s Homestead, and Rachel does so many amazing things, and she makes just such delicious things that I would love to be able to have in my pantry. But I don't have time to make all the different things. If I'm in a can, I would rather, because that's all, it's not just homesteading and canning season for me. It's homesteading and canning season and herb season, and I'm making medicine, and like there's so many other things that I'm doing other than just homesteading, and it's still market season. So it's so much work. Um, so if I'm going to be canning, first off, I don't do the bulk of my canning in summer. I do it in winter because I don't have time to sit in front of a canner. But if I'm going to be canning, it's got to be something that I can do fast, a lot of, and I can use it for multiple different recipes. So that's why I'll do like salsa. I'll do a basic tomato sauce, not necessarily pasta sauce. I'll do blueberry syrup. I'll do strawberry syrup. We'll do plain green beans, plain potatoes. I'm not mixing things and making like soup in a jar and stuff like that because I just don't have time. It's amazing to have that on your pantry, and I would love to do it. But for me, it's fast enough. It's simple enough to just kind of grab and dump, and then I can just mix everything from there. I have to start bedtime for my 2-year-old. If I'm not back before you're done, have a wonderful night. Yeah, I got to hop off. Actually, it's after 8. My daughter has to go to bed too. So have a good night. Thanks for coming on. I'll talk for another couple minutes, and then I gotta run. She was supposed to go to bed early because she did make it up till midnight last night. Accidentally, I told her she could stay up till 10, which is like 2 hours past her bedtime. And then I fell asleep on the couch, ironically, because I'm always up past midnight. So yeah, I fell asleep, and then she ended up going to sleep at midnight. So what's the difference between a steam canner and a steam cleaner and a steam canning? So your steam cleaner is a different thing. So if you're steam cleaning, that's usually, I mean, I've seen a lot of different steam cleaners. You got your steam mopping, you've got the steam handle things, and you can, steam clean that way. Steam canning, it looks like it's like this silver pot. It looks like a canner basically upside down. The bottom part where you put your jars sits in like this bottom pan that's only a couple inches tall, and you only put a couple inches of water in it, and it's got a rack where your jars go, kind of like a pressure canner. And then you put this big huge and there's the dial on top, so you watch like your steam, your temperature and everything. And same, just like a pressure canner, like once it gets to a certain, like in a certain range, that's when you start your time. It's so much faster than water bath canning too. So I love it. Jess from Three Rivers does that for tomato paste. I could sit and watch Three Rivers forever. I love watching her video. I like having her videos on just like while I'm cleaning and stuff. I haven't watched her in a very long time. But I love her pantry challenge too. Pantry challenge is amazing. I think I might do it this year. I don't know if I'm going to share anything about it because that's a lot of work. But I think we've got multiple freezers that are full to the brim, and they need to empty for next growing season. So I think we might do it. Okay. I feel like there was something else I was going to say. Oh yeah. Okay. If you guys, now we didn't even get a chance to talk about it because we were talking about all sorts of other things. If you guys want to start, growing medicinal herbs, like growing your own, I will be having, February, my herbal winter workshops are going to be all about growing. So keep an eye out for those. You can go on to my website and you can like subscribe to my website. So basically you're getting notifications for, and there's not tons of notifications. If your canner fits 7-quart jars, make that your small batch amount. Yep. Oh, and a steam canner, I think a steam canner does 7. Does it do 7-quart jars? I think. I'm pretty sure. Okay, so you can sign up for that, and then you get notified immediately when a new workshop is live. The workshops are $10, and then once you have them, you have them. But they are going to be taken down from like after February 29th. So if you don't get them by February 29th, you have to wait until next winter to be able to get them again. But if you have purchased them, you can access it whenever because you've got the email, so you can have that. But this book, The Organic, is this backwards? I hope it's not backwards. The Organic Medicinal Herb Farmer. This right here is the biggest help I have ever had in learning how to farm herbs, okay? If you're not farming, but you're just growing, still, I can't recommend anything else more than this book. They did such a fabulous job talking about, let me just pick one. Talking about what to grow, how to grow it. Let me talk a little bit about it real quick, and then I really do have to go. Why to grow medicinal herbs, talks about size and scale considerations. Then it's got a section about like facilities, layouts, designs, field and crop considerations, planning, tools of the trade. Like this is all more like farm scale, business manager stuff. Okay, and then it talks about field and bed preparation, plant propagation, considerations for growing medicinals, weed control with herbs, pest and disease prevention and control, which I'm going to tell you, I never have to deal with pests and disease with herbs. I have not had to up until this point. We're just going to, knock on some wood there because watch, this will be the year because I just said that out loud. Except for Asian beetles, they love marshmallow and red raspberry leaf. So I have to net those two things, but other than that, nope, never had to so far. Talks about harvest, talks about the post-harvest packaging, drying, all sorts of things. And then if you're going to be marketing, if you're going to be selling, talks about all of that. And then there's a number of herbs that they consider, a page and a half of herbs. So there's a lot. There's a lot of great information in this book. I would highly recommend, again, The Organic Medicinal Herb Farmer. There's 2 versions of it. I just found out. I don't know which one I have. I don't know which one is which. This is incredibly helpful. I really like this one. When I was getting started, especially, it was wonderful for me. And then I reference it a lot. I was just referencing it earlier when I was doing this. Okay, I didn't show you this, so I'm going to show you this. See, it's after 8. I was going to get off. Oh, my goodness. Okay. All right, so this is our herb row. So the way this works is on our farm. This is the south garden starts here, okay? This is the homestead garden. This is here. And then this is a tree. This is oh my goodness. I really should do this laying down or putting this paper down. This is a tree and this is a tree. We're building swings in between here. That's what that is. And then there's like an old drain tile and this big space in between. You don't ever, ever, ever mess with old drain tiles or you will have water issues forever. Okay, so they'll have a big space in between. Okay, and then starts the herb farm. So we have 3 rows here. This row here, we started this year. This is the hops row. So we got hops established here. Half of it died. But the first half is good and established. The second half is going to have to start over. So this year we have to put in the trellising system, which is going to be posts and high tension wire going across here because hops binds. So, vining, it just kind of goes and finds the path of least resistance. Binds is when it basically comes up and twists. Think Jack the Beanstalk. That's basically what we're talking about here. So it'll come up and it'll just bind and kind of grow up and go. I'll keep doing that all the way up. And hops in its second year can grow like 30 feet. 30 feet tall. It's so big. And they'll grow like 20 inches a day in their first year. So it's incredible how fast this plant grows. So you have to create like a whole system for this. Now, I can't create a system that's going to go that high up because number 1, I am not messing with 30-foot poles. Number 2, I'm not climbing that. And I'm not going to create something, like big farms that have a lot of money. They can create these systems that like they can basically like release their tension and the plants will fall and then they can harvest through that and then they can raise their vines back up. I'm not going to do that. basically what I'm doing, if you can follow this here, is they will be planted, each one of these lines, okay, so here's, each one of these is a post, and then this line down the middle is the high tension cable, and then there's a high tension cable that's going off of here. Every one of these cables is where the binds are going to be because they go up around where they're being trellised, and they will be huge and beautiful and just glorious. So this here is a row that basically they're just attaching to. And then on the south side here, this right here is St. John's wort. So when I am planting, because especially if you're planting things that are new to you, it's really easy to get very overwhelmed and then just decide to plant all the things and you have no idea what to do with them. So you end up wasting all of your plant starts. I've been there, I've done it. I do it every year. This year, I decided I'm going to, in my planning, I'm going to write down in there everything I need to do. So St. John's wort, which I know how to do St. John's wort, done St. John's wort, we have St. John's wort, but I put everything in there with the spacing and everything, and this is how I figured out how many plants I need to plant. I need to plant in this 50-foot row, 46 plants. So for here, for my hops, I need a total of 6 plants because these things are massive, massive, okay? So I figured out, like, this is why I like graph paper. I can't talk anymore, guys, because 1 square is 1 foot. So you go, St. John's wort needs to be about 14 inches away from another plant, 14 inches away from rows, 12 inches away from plants. So we've got 2 rows in this one bed, and these are going to be 14 inches apart, and these are going to be 12 inches apart. So that's how I figured that out. And then I've got all my notes for growing on the top. So all I have to do is look at my grow notes, and I will know what needs to be done, and like what, especially for additives, because like with vegetables, most of your vegetables, you can stick them in the ground and they're happy, right? Peppers, tomatoes, lettuces, you just plant them. They're good. If you have decent soil, you plant them, they're good. With herbs, some herbs really need a rich soil. Some need a crap soil. Some want junk. They want wasteland. So you have to create wasteland when you have good soil, which is the problem we have. It's a problem, you know. So for St. John's wort, that's one of those. So I have to add like perlite. I have to find sand. I have to find clean sands. I think we're probably just gonna have to bite the bullet and get perlite because it's more expensive, but it's clean. I can make sure that I have a good product. With sand, I don't know if I can find that. Sand would be definitely more cost effective though. And then I will broad fork those into that soil. And then I can plant my St. John's wort starts directly into that. So I put all that information on, like it says St. John's wort, add perlite or sand with broad fork, transplant with 12 inches between plant and 14 inches between row. And I have my notes right on there. I'm good to go. And now all I need is just my papers that I made. I don't need to go back and access books and seed packs. I've got my plans all in one spot. So that's how I like to do my planning. My voice is about done. And this is going to be very helpful. I'm going to share in like a whole video because we're going to share about how to start a medicinal herb farm. Basically, I'm going to share about how we did it and, you know, the steps that we took to get started and what we do every year. That video is coming probably in the end of January or early February. But like I said, the workshops, best place to learn about like all the details for this stuff, because I can only share so much in videos, doing 3 videos a week. And you'd think like that's a lot of videos, like that's a lot of content you have to come up with, but there's so much to share about and so much to teach about that there's just not enough time to get everything out to you guys. Even if I did videos every single day, which I would lose my mind if I did. If I did that, I would still not have enough time to teach you everything and to dive deep enough into certain topics. So that's why I did the herbal workshops. They're not overwhelming. If you've taken one, they're not overwhelming classes at all. I made them simple, easy to follow, quick to get through. but packed with information so that whatever you're learning how to do, it will get you started and will help you be confident in what you're doing. So definitely check those out if you want to get more information on starting herbs. Especially, we're going to do 2 of the workshops are going to be starting a tea garden. So if you don't want to do herb farming or a larger scale herb gardening, and you just want like a tea garden or a little medicinal herb garden, I've got courses on both of those, because a tea garden is a little different than a medicinal herb garden. The herbs that you use are a little different. Yes, they can cross, but like for technically a tea garden and a medicinal garden, there's difference. So we're going to go over 2 separate workshops in that. So check those out if you're interested. I will go back and put those links in the show notes if you guys want to check them out later. So I have to hop off now. It's almost 8:30. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight. I had completely forgot that it was Monday. New Year's just threw me for a loop. That whole in between Christmas and New Year's thing is like a black hole, you know. So I almost forgot. I almost completely forgot about live tonight. So I'm glad you guys could make it. Thanks again for hanging out. And if you guys have any other questions that we didn't get a chance to talk to you about here, feel free to reach out. You can email me. You can DM me. We'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.